What's the eternal principle?
Brahman.
Which is?
Well, we call it God, but that personifies it.
Welcome to episode 100 from the Grave Podcast. Let's get right into it. As always, this podcast is sponsored by Vedic Meditation with Matt Cardone. Vedic meditation is a simple technique of meditation. You don't need any fancy apps. You don't need to wear Lululemon, sit on a rock with your back up straight. It's an ancient technique that works with a mantra. Now, a mantra is literally transcribed as mind vehicle. So what this mantra is designed to do, it's void of meaning, and it's like a lullaby to the mind. So it gives you gives the mind something to grab a hold of and gain traction with, follow past the levels of the intellect and the ego, and drop you right off down into the center of yourself. Kingdom of heaven, as the Christian tradition would call it, bliss consciousness, whatever you want to call it. This is all about maximum stress relief. And stress is stored in the body. It's been accumulated years upon years upon years. I've been practicing this Vedic meditation for almost 3 years now, and it's easily been probably the single most revolutionary thing in my life. So if you need any guidance with that, or you want to get in touch with Matt Cardone, you can hit him up from his website, Matt Cardone Meditation, or hit him up on Instagram, Matt Cardone Meditation. All right. So let's get right into it. As I said, this is episode 100. We're going to do something a little different and a little special to me and close to my heart this episode. Before I get into that, FTG 2023, baby. Hashtag FTG 2023. We're going on YouTube all in this year. All in, all the time. I got my man Andrew and Nora helping me out. We got a studio in the crib now. So right now, this is uploaded on YouTube. So if you feel like throwing it up on the phone or watching it at home, as I like to watch podcasts and see my pretty face, by all means, go right ahead. So anyways, we got that right out of the way. Make sure you subscribe to YouTube. You want to get a little bit more interactive and leave us some comments and have some fun. We're all about it. All right. So the reason why this podcast is special to me is one of my old therapists from probably like 8-9 years ago, Kim. We called her Mama Kim. Her name is Kim Morgan. What's up, Mama Kim? She was my therapist at a treatment center, like I said, a long time ago. She's now a professor at Elkins College in West Virginia for counseling and addiction studies. She reached out to me and asked me to submit a video to show the college just about, basically my story. Honestly, what it would be like if you just went to a meeting, what it was like, what happened right now, to embody kind of the nature of addiction, the trials, the tribulations, resilience, and what can happen if you really get dialed into a new way of life and experience resurrection from the grave, which, this is what it's all about. So I'm honored to be able to do this, and that's it. So me and Kim, this wonderful, wonderful woman, we had made contact probably like 9 years ago. She was my therapist. I never stayed sober, was still wilding out. And then I ended up in Tennessee on a pretty gnarly run. And I remember calling the owner of a treatment center that was known at the time of AARC, and basically begged for my life for one more shot. I had nothing. I had no one. And I remember I was just a weakness of a man sitting on a back porch in Lebanon, Tennessee, and beg for another shot, and they took me back. And I remember this was about 7 years ago. I'll have 7 years sober in June. And I remember having my first session with Kim, and it was so good to see her. And she is this warm, southern, just motherly nature, just kindness emanating from every cell in her body, right? And I remember her asking me, I remember sitting in front of her, and the first thing she said, she was like, "Okay, honey, how did you get here?" And I remember sitting there, and I just didn't know. I didn't have an answer. I wanted to have an answer. I could have said, "Oh, I came from Tennessee and all this stuff," but she was asking me something much, much deeper, and I knew it, and it floored me. And I didn't know what to say. And that was one of the moments where the shell gets cracked, which is necessary if you're going to change your fucking life. If you want to change your life, you better get used to pain, and you better get used to misery. And I think if there's one cure for addiction, and that's pain. Pain starts right here. It's felt in the body, and then it moves through every corner of my life, right? And that was what I was creating on a day-to-day basis. So we'll start here, right? The nature of addiction, right? If you think about this, if you go into a hospital, right, there's two things you go into the hospital for: to treat the mind and to treat the body. Now, you can go into a hospital, right? You can walk in, you can say, "Hey, I got diabetes type 1, I need some insulin." They say, "No problem, we got some insulin here, we got you." You could go in with diseases, measles, mumps, rubella, chickenpox, COVID-19. We got a vaccine for you, we got you, right? You got a broken arm, we'll fix it. If you need a tumor removed from your brain, they will take a tumor out of your brain, give you chemo, and have a chance to save your damn life. If you need a new heart, they will put an organ in your body and save your life. You got drug addiction or alcoholism, the best they got for you is a bed to detox on. Think about that. The best this world and science has for you is a bed to detox on. They got nothing for you, because addiction is a walking riddle. At some point in the life of every addict and alcoholic, you look at your hands and you have an experience of, "I wish I didn't have to get high right now, but I must. I'm not going to drink, I'm not going to drink, I'm not going to drink, I drink." And then in that insanity, times the number of years you live that way, you have a man or a woman up shit creek without a paddle, because we're living in slow and utter suicide, right? So when we look at this and we say, I could go into Sloan Kettering Hospital and beg for them to help me, there's no answer. There's no vaccine. There's no medication. There's crutches. They tried with Suboxone. They tried with methadone. They tried with Vivitrol. They tried with Antabuse. These are all crutches, and it could set you up to get out of the gutter, so to speak, but it ain't going to save your life, right? It's a far cry from that. So there's three elements of a human being, right? You can't have more. You can't have more. You can't have less. We got mind. We got body. We got spirit. Now, the mind is hell-bent on insanity. Insanity to the degree where we work down using and drinking down into our lizard brain, where any type of discomfort I feel, I immediately use, right? It's a selfish disease because addicts and alcoholics worship their feelings, right? Can't be scared, can't be insecure, can't not be confident, can't be depressed, can't be sad, can't be unsure, can't be confused, must have euphoria now. And it's like, yo, life don't fucking work that way, man. Life don't work that way. You're going to be sad. You're going to have bad days. Normal people don't go out and smoke crack because they had a bad day at work. That's not a thing, and it never will be a thing, right? But to the addict and the alcoholic, it's life. They breathe it every day. So if you want to get sober, we go buckle up and get ready for bad days. So the script that you got to burn to the ground right off rip is that I have to feel good, or I deserve to feel good. And it's like, no, you're going to not feel good long before you start to level out and find a new baseline. So with these three elements of a human being, right? Mind, body, and spirit. If the mind is wrapped in insanity and there's no psychology or no pill that can fix it, okay, let's cross that off. We can't go there. The body is stricken with alcoholism and heroin addiction, many scars on the body like myself, feeble, insomnia, puking. You're not going to bicep curl yoga your way or namaste your way through that. It just ain't going to happen, right? I'm a huge fan of psychology, medication if you need it. Huge fan of exercise. But without spiritual development, these things are not sufficient. They will fail utterly, right? At least that's been the case with me. When the spirit is properly aligned to living a new way of life, the body and mind, followed by that, can begin to do whatever you want it to do, because it's no longer your master. The master is the mind, and the mind says, hey, in order for you to be okay, you got to drink and you got to drug. And the spirit cries out and says, please, no, I don't want to do that. But for years, we just don't listen. And so the first requirement to even having a shot at changing your life is the recognition of how screwed you really are. To have that type of devastating weakness, to understand that in all my attempts to pull myself up on my bootstraps, get the right job, get the right girl, move to the right state, make the right amount of money, it all doesn't click, right? And so enter recovery, right? A lot of people need to go to treatment to get sober because they have to be separated from the hell that they're living and breathing every single day. Now, again, we look at the power of that, right? If you have to go to treatment, right? Every single person that goes to treatment had to be physically removed or separated from the reality of their day-to-day life to even have a shot at sucking down the sober breath they're breathing right now. There's no other animal on God's green earth that has to be put in a facility to learn how to not harm themselves. It's in our own DNA, our God-given DNA, just to stay alive, create shelter, procreate, eat, drink water, etc. Not so with the addict or the alcoholic. We oppose our own DNA through self-destruction, bent on self-destruction, right? So we have to figure out, and we go, well, where's the solution? Well, a solution came into the world 87 years ago, and it was spiritual, and it didn't make any sense, right? The best this world had for us, they used to put addicts and alcoholics into psych wards and try to perform lobotomies on them and try to remove the alcoholic part of the brain, which is absolutely insane, right? They would try to remove the alcoholic part of the brain. And so enter spirituality through a 12-step program. Every doctor in a white coat, their general opinion was these guys are doomed. They got no shot. This world has literally given all that is in them, but it's just not enough. So we come to the conclusion that if man and science isn't enough, then there must be something greater at work here. And that's the spirit. That's the last house on the block, which, by the way, no man or no woman wants to go to. So the first radical experience for me was accepting that I was absolutely screwed. And I was a slave, man. I was an IV drug user. I was doing speedballs, and I remember this past time was my 7th time in treatment, and I had no hope, right? I was in there for the 7th time. I was apathetic, which is the most dangerous place you could be. I'd rather have you be angry than apathetic, because if you're apathetic, you could give a shit about yourself or life or anyone around you. And I was just waiting for the thought to come to say, hey, go shoot coke. Go shoot coke. Because there came a time in my life where I didn't put up a fight anymore. It didn't matter. I knew I was its bitch. So I just said, yes, sir, whatever you would like, right? Now, I had long-term sobriety when I was young, like 23 to like 27, when I was in Syracuse, New York, which is where I'm from. And I experienced a great life, man. I was a gnarly drug addict, and I got into a 12-step program, and everything began to change, and life got better. I forgot where I came from, and I went back out, and I was reminded about where I came from, and things got bad. So when I got into treatment, I had like this arrogance about me, like I'm not gonna fucking learn anything new. I got all the books, I know all the deal, I can quote the whole thing, right? And I remember, literally, when I was in treatment, kneeling naked before God, I had put my 12-step books, my Bible in a drawer, right? And I remember saying to him, I thought I knew who you were and what you were about, but clearly I have no fucking idea. If you could help me stay sober, that'd be great. And I let go. I let go of trying to figure it out, because I was always trying to figure it out, right? And there's nothing to figure out, and there's nothing to get. I remember this behavioral health tech coming up to me when I was in treatment, and he goes, "This shit's so annoying." They always say this. They go, "What's going to be different this time?" And I was like, "Fuck you, Jerry. I don't know." You know what I mean? Like, say some other shit, bro. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what's going to, like, find some other shit to say, Jerry guy, And I remember, like, any other time I'd give him some pretty recovery answer. Oh, I'm going to work the steps. I'm going to stay away from this. I'm going to go to halfway. I'm going to do this, which are all, like, gold star recovery answers. These are things that, we do to begin to, like, build a new structure of life. But I remember looking at him, I'm like, you know what, man? Probably nothing's going to be different. Look at me. I'm 130 pounds soaking wet. I got an open wound on my neck. I can barely stand up straight. And you guys got me drinking Ensure after every damn meal just to get some nutrients in my body. The same fucking thing my grandfather drinks. So you know what, Jerry? Probably nothing's going to be fucking different, right? And I thought that in that moment, I was accepting an addict's death. I really thought that's what I was doing. But when I look back in retrospect, like, I think that was surrender. I think that was like, I got nothing, man. I'm not strong enough. I can't beat this. What's done is done. And I view my God as being like, yeah, I know, about time. Get out of the way and watch me work. And so things started to change pretty quickly. After that, I remember I woke up one day and I had this thought or this conviction that I was going to be okay. And I had never had that before. And I just had this like little voice within me where I'm like, you know what, I'm going to be okay. And it was startling, to be honest with you. I didn't believe it because I'd never had that before. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to keep this close to the chest. I'm not going to talk to anybody about it. I'm just going to keep it right here. And the next day I woke up and a little bit more like I knew that I was going to be okay. And with this started to come like some new energy or confidence or just excitement, because that's what I always wanted, was just to be okay. The third day I woke up, I knew that I was going to be okay and that it was all over. And I had never had that before. I woke up and I just knew it was done. I knew I was never going back. And, for the last 6.5 years, that's proved to be the case. I could be wrong. God willing, we don't know what's going to happen. And, years down the, we don't know. But it led me to a place of being okay. And that's all recovery is. It's being willing to give up the life that you're trying to hold on to in order to receive the life that's waiting for you. And that's the scariest thing to do, because what you're doing is casting your care upon God. And you're saying, my life is none of my business. And you know what? It shouldn't be any of my fucking business. Look what I've done with it. Look at the scars and the harm on myself. Look at the lack of relationships and trust I have in the people. I don't have any people in my life. I have nowhere to go. I got creditors after me. I'm in financial ruin. I'm homeless. The car got repoed. I'm in and out of psych wards. I'm living on the streets. Of course they want to lock me up. Of course I'm in and out of institutions, right? So I haven't been making a good going with my life. I didn't come in here on a winning streak. Let me see what it's like to be like, you know what? I got nothing. I'm done. Let me hang this shit up. I'm done trying, right? So I accepted that fact. It was like a little bit of ego came into my life where, and you know, this is a little controversial, but like I had this moment where I was looking in the mirror and I was like, you know what? Like, your life is the way it is right now because you designed it that way. You fucked up. You ran from truth. You gave up. This is on you. It ain't on nobody else. It's on you. It always has been, and it always fucking will be on you. And what changed was I wanted it to be that way. I was done whining. It was like I was going to eat this shit. You know, I was like, I'm going to embrace this. Like, I'm going to eat shit for as long as I have to and build my life back up less than zero, right? And that's what it became about, man. And the main thing that changed with me is I mental health is a big part of my deal. And it was really, really bad when I first got sober. Really, really bad. I mean, overpowering anxiety, depression that would keep me in bed, you know, for a few days at a time, which I know other people struggle in more or lesser degrees, but it was enough to hurt my way of life. So I remember being really banged up, and I called my sponsor, and I was maybe like a year and a half, maybe 2 years sober at the time. I'd called in sick to work. I lied for 2 days in a row. I'm in bed. I hate everything. Nothing's okay. I'm just in a bad way mentally. So I called my sponsor, and I'm telling him all this. You know, I'm in a bad way. And he goes, okay. And he goes, Scott, your issue isn't that you're depressed. Your issue is that you're judging yourself for being depressed. Like right now, it's not okay with you. And so now you got two voices. The one that says, I'm depressed, and the one that says, that's not okay. I should feel good. And it's like, says fucking who? Right? So then he goes, all right, how long are you going to be depressed for? And I was like, what kind of stupid fucking question is that? How long am I going to be depressed for? He goes, how long are you going to be sad for? Give me a number. How many days? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm like doing the calculation in my head. I'm like, well, I've already been fucking pretty pissed off and sad for 2 days. So how many more we got in me, you know? And I'm like, I don't know. I was like 2 days. And he goes, all right, you can be sad and depressed, stay in bed, watch New Girl in the Office for 2 more days, eat ice cream and hate your life. Then you got to get up and go to work. And he hung up. And I'm like, fuck this guy, man. Fuck this guy. So I got up, went to a meeting, and went and got involved with life, right? So he screwed with me, right? He put it back on me. The one thing that changed was that all my weaknesses became okay with me this time around. You know, we think about scripture, right? There's a scripture where Paul is pleading with God. He's pleading with him about these thorns. We don't know exactly what the thorns are, but, you know, fill in the blank type thing. And he's got these thorns in his side, and he's pleading to God, please remove them from me. And all God said was, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in your weakness, right? And then Paul goes, well, shit, if where I'm weak, you're strong, then I'm going to walk around and I'm going to boast about my weaknesses. I'm going to tell the world and I'm going to be vulnerable. And that's what changed for me. I accepted the fact that I had weaknesses and I had shit that I had to work on because you know what? I've been doing heroin and hard drugs since I was 15 years old. I got spit out in 29 to change my life. So that's got to be okay. The person that you were in addiction, the one that you have to face and contend with when you get sober, it's building you into the person that you've always wanted to be. There's a duality there, right? You need the thorns to experience the power of spirituality or of God or of this life. I used to despise my past self. And there's still parts of it where I'm like not too keen on, right? But for the most part, I'm grateful for the things that have happened in my life. Obviously, I've caused harm and all that, and there's amends to be made. But what I'm saying is, the highest version of you needs the lowest version of you, because in order to know what the highest version of yourself is, you got to experience the lowest. In order to know what darkness is, you got to have the light, and vice versa. How do you know what up is without down, type of thing, right? So then, like, my whole life, like the past 6 years have been about utterly letting go to what life has to offer me. And it has to offer a fucking lot, right? So intensive therapy. So the 12 steps are always the foundation, right? The 12 steps are always the foundation. Without that, I couldn't have got here. The 12 steps are nothing magical. It's not fucking floating up on the magic carpet ride with Aladdin or none of that shit. It's a invitation, and the invitation is a new set of information. And the new set of information says, hey, what if you lived this way? What if you started to do this? What if you started to respond differently to life? And what if you didn't have to react compulsively as you've always done, right? That's all the 12 steps are. And the power we call God or universe or life or the mighty rhythm that underlay everything, the heartbeat of the universe, allows the powerless addict and the alcoholic to step out on that flimsy reed and see what that uncommon life or that uncommon action has for me. For instance, like, if you want an uncommon life, you got to do uncommon shit. You want a different life, you better start doing different things. You go right where your fear is. You go right where you get jammed up, right where you stumble, that's where you go. And that's what I was never willing to do. Again, with the discomfort, any sliver of uncomfortability in my life, I ran the other way. I ran from it. Anything that was good, I cling to it, and I never wanted it to let it go. Anything that was bad, get away from me, right? So there was no healthy baseline in my life, right? So this all started to change and get challenged, right? Here's a for instance, right? Viktor Frankl says, and I'm paraphrasing, he said, there is a space between stimulus and response, and within that space is the power to change your life, right? Now, the stimulus for an addict and an alcoholic is discomfort, is I don't like this moment. I don't like what it contains. Get me the fuck out of here. And the get me the fuck out of here is use and drink, right? So it's like, again, if you want to get sober, that's not the deal. Like, we can't do that. Because in that moment of get me out of here, this isn't okay, there's a rider that's attached to that thought. And that thought and judgment is this is an absolute and it's always going to be this way. And that's the great lie, is that I'm always going to be uncomfortable. And you got to challenge that. So like the first great lie we come in here with, or when you're an addict or you're an alcoholic, this is the great lie. This is the saddest lie in the world, which is I need to get high and drink to be okay. That's the lie that locks you up, covers you up, or sobers you up, right? Jails, institutions, or death. That lie will bring you to the gates of death. And you come into recovery, let's say you get sober, you're 90 days, 6 months sober. I come up to you and I'm like, hey man, do you got a drink right now? Do you got to get high? And they may say, no, I'm actually okay. I'm going to go home. I got some ice cream. There's a new season of Peaky Blinders on. I'm just going to chill for the night. And it's like, what do you mean you're good? 90 days ago, if I would have showed up while you were knee deep in an 8-ball and I said, hey, do you got to keep doing coke right now? You would have said, yeah, fucking throw down or fuck off, man. And so all of a sudden we move from the greatest lie we'd ever know in our life to the simplest truth, which is, you know what? I'm kind of okay. And when you move into that okayness, the whole goal of life is to fan that flame of being okay and bring it into every area of your life. Like your fucking life depends on it, right? So, like my life depends on it, right? And it's all about utterly letting go. And the letting go, firstly, is letting go of the way that I used to respond to life. So back to this space between stimulus and response, right? Any type of sliver of discomfort I use and I drink because my mind says this is an absolute, it's going to be there forever. Now, there's no such thing as an absolute in life. It's not always going to be night. It's not always going to be day. It's not always going to be winter. It's not always going to be summer. It's not always going to be cold. It's not always going to be hot. There's no such thing as an absolute. The only fucking absolute in life is change. Nothing stays the same. Everything is always changing. So you either get down with that or get put down from it. Your choice, right? So we have like this sliver, like this 7 seconds between stimulus and response, I think, as an addict, right? Which is discomfort, and I got 7 seconds to do something different. Now, being able to do something different in that 7 seconds without support, without the community and fellowship of a 12-step program, without being in treatment or intensive outpatient or having a counselor or a therapist and a whole plate of skills and coping mechanisms and prayer and meditation. Without all that, you're fucked. You're done. You're done. No addict and alcoholic can recover on their own resources. It just ain't gonna happen, man. It ain't gonna happen. Because if it could have happened, it would have fucking happened. You know what I mean? Like if you were able to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, we wouldn't have the 12 steps and there wouldn't be any necessity for addiction studies because this thing called self-will would be sufficient. And that's a laughing matter in the face of alcoholism and drug addiction. There's no cure. There's no cure, right? So what we begin to do with the 12 steps is offer a new solution. And we say, what if you reached out to somebody in that 7 seconds? Matter of fact, what if you were in a 12-step meeting when those 7 seconds hit? What if you were with friends who were years sober and they were helping you out and that 7 seconds hit? What if you had a relationship with a God in that moment? What if you had started to meditate and all of a sudden you started to have 8, 9, 10 seconds and things started to change, right? Things would start to look different because you've insisted upon being different in the scariest 7 seconds of your life. And that's when life begins to change. Is when the only thing you want, when you want peace more than you want your next breath, it'll come. When you want peace and love and okayness within you more than you want your next breath, everything will change in your life. Everything. That's what happened to me, right? I came in, I didn't care what state I lived in, halfway, car, no car, girlfriend or not, how much money I had, what job I had, what I ate for food, if I could listen to music on my phone. I didn't give a shit anymore. Nothing mattered to me. All I wanted was freedom from the voices that said, give up, run away, hide, evade. Give up, go do what you've always done. Just give up and hide. And I got 2 choices. I can continue to give up and experience a certain pain and suffering that comes from always giving up, Or I can step into the unknown when it's scary as hell and experience momentary discomfort and become a new man. The last house on the block is to walk into the unknown. And the ego hates that shit because it just wants a fucking reference point. It just wants something to hold on to, man. Just please, God, don't do anything different. And it's like, if you want to become a different man or a different woman, you better get used to doing some shit that don't make any sense to you. And the way you're going to begin to do other things is by mentorship, because you're walking into a new world. You're walking into a spiritual world. And as soon as you transcend a new world, you need a guide. You need a guide, man. Everyone. You're taking up a new profession. You just, I'm going to go be a doctor. Yeah, I'm just going to read these books and I'll figure it out one day. No, you go into training. You're entering a new world. You need all the mentorship, all the resources of people who have gone on before you. If you want to be a videographer, a photographer, you don't just go buy some fucking $2,000 camera and just start figuring. No, you study, man. You go get with people who are dialed in and ask, how can I become what you are currently experiencing? This is the power of the 12 steps, therapy, meditation, and a radical life of prayer and a relationship with God, period, right? So psychology, counseling, the resources that the world has to offer to support recovery, because that's what the world can do. It can support recovery. It cannot cure addiction. It can support recovery. The cure from addiction comes from the pain within a man or a woman and their dedication to live a new way of life. You start living that new way of life, the floodgates of heaven open up and all the angels rush upon your back to help you. And it comes through the voices of other people, through people like my friend Mama Kim Morgan, through everyone. You begin to move with a new order of things. Doors will open where there wasn't before because you've started to follow some charm of life, and that charm comes from God. Your eyes begin to open little by slowly because you're starting to do unknown things. And when you do unknown things, there's different energy and excitement and love behind those unknown doors. And it becomes an affinity to you. You're like, damn, I'm kind of enthralled by this. I love this shit. Let me keep going. Because you know what? This is something starting to change within me, right? And when you start to feel that change, that becomes something unexplainable, just the same way as addiction is. It's unexplainable. It's a phenomenon, right? So you begin to follow this. And that's all my life has been for the last 6 years. Like, for instance, even with FTG, From the Grave Podcast and Apparel, right? It was 2018, and so I'm like 2 years sober, like 2 and change. Yeah, I think it was like 2 and change sober. And I had this thought from day one, like I wanted to start this spiritually centered clothing line, and I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know what a S Corp was or an LLC or who Gary Vaynerchuk was or what an entrepreneur was or any of that bullshit. Like, I just didn't understand it, right? But I had this thought that just wouldn't leave. I'm like, there's this huge pendulum that swings between your, one day at a time recovery shirt and your I Love Jesus Christian shirt. I'm like, you know what? Both have importance, but there's got to be somewhere in the middle. So like my view, my recovery hasn't been pretty. It's not pretty. It's fucking hard, man. It's hard. It's difficult. It's messy. It's confusing. And it just doesn't make sense. But sometimes it does and everything's okay. But to get to that, like you're rolling away a stone, man. Like it's not easy. You're trying to kill a past version of yourself day in, day out, weeks on top of months and years. That's a painful process, right? So I thought of this FTG and I'm like, I want to make a dope clothing line that embodies this raw message of recovery. I don't want it to scream spirituality. I want it to be a design that like you would walk by and you'd be like, that's sick, that's a dope shirt, that's badass, I'm going to buy that. But see, within the designs, every design means something. It has scripture embedded to it. The design is built off a quote. It goes, there's a lot of thought and energy that goes into that shirt. And then, so that launched and started to do really well. And the world almost was like, you put yourself out there, right? Which is interesting that it starts with just something within you. It starts as a thought. And then if you have the courage to follow that and you say, all right, I'm scared to death. I don't know what I'm doing, but let me just print some t-shirts and get them on the backs of my buddies. You do that. You've put something out into the rhythm of life, which is God. And then the world sees that and says, hey, you know what? We value this. We like this. And it nods back at you. And then you have a decision. You can cower and run because it gets too intense, or you can continue the nod and listen to it. So we just follow, right? And now the t-shirts and all that was such a deep and meaningful thing to me that I'm like, well, listen, you're only going to buy a $30 t-shirt if you like what's going on behind it, right? Like, you may like Joe Rogan or, his symbols are right, but you're only going to buy a $30 Joe Rogan t-shirt because you like Joe Rogan, not because, the symbol's cool. At least so I think, right? So I talked to one of my buddies and I was like, hey, I want to start a podcast. Can you kind of show me the ropes? Yep. So I grabbed a microphone and I'm like, let me just get behind the mic and kind of talk about the essence of FTG, what it means to me and all this stuff. So that started a year later in 2019 after the clothing line had launched. And then I started putting out an episode every week, getting cool people on and just sharing a message every week. And, the podcast has taken the limelight, if you will, or just center stage. And now the apparel is just an offshoot for me to be creative and create designs and make one-of-one shirts and different type of apparel that embody the message that's talked about behind the mic. So I have literally followed FTG. I follow it. It gave me all the relationships I have in my life, all the people I've met. I literally have it because of my job today, right? It got me involved with communities of awesome people that are on fire for things of purpose and passion. You got involved with them. I met a guy. He worked at a treatment center. He was leaving to go out of state to leverage a business. He goes, hey, you'd be good at my job working in treatment. You want an interview? I'm like, oh, okay, I guess. Went in, had an interview, had an offer in the next week. And what am I going to do? Say no? That was an effortless, it darkened my doorstep. What am I going to do? Say no? So you just start saying yes to life and pay attention to this a rhythm. It's a rhythm. It doesn't make any sense, right? So your eyes start to open, and when they open, they're kind of opening in wonder, and you're like, damn, there's something else going on here. So you just start doing things for free and for fun. It just becomes fun. It's not work, it's play. And that's all God's will is for me. I don't believe God's will is any type of specific circumstance. I mean, it is, but before that, his will for me is absolute joy, freedom, happiness, greater self-expression, opportunities for creativity and service to others without interfering or fussing. That's what he wants. And if I can make that my commitment, anything and everything I'd ever want in my life will come to my feet. Come to my feet. It will always increase. It will always go the way it's supposed to because I've completely let go. And I say, okay, the circumstances of my life are none of my business. That's your business, God. My job is to be the best version of myself, be radically okay, and to share that okayness with the world because that's all I ever wanted was to be okay. All this stuff pushed me into intensive trauma therapy and Vedic meditation. I cannot speak enough about the benefits of therapy. We can't see our own ears. It's a different language. They lead you into the center of yourself and offer you questions and prompts of things you've never considered before. So it gave me a new language. I remember going into my therapist and he goes, all right, Scott, why don't you tell me who you are? First meet, right? I'm like probably 3 years sober. And he goes, all right, why don't you tell me who you are? And he was in recovery, so like he knew the deal, right? And he goes, why don't you tell me who you are? And I go, all right. So I give him the 10-minute spiel, and he goes, that's real good, Scott. He goes, most people that come in here give me their recovery talk, but I asked you who you were. And he just completely disregarded my whole thing, my whole narration. And basically he said, you got it wrong. I asked you who you were, and you gave me a little recovery talk. And I was like, shit, I immediately regret this decision, right? But it became exciting because he challenged the narration of me and said, what if there was more? What if there was more? Could it be exciting? Could it be beneficial? You're damn right it could. Meditation allows you to rest in what the Christian tradition would call the kingdom of heaven. Meditation is all about a profound state of rest. There's no one that needs rest and trauma dismantled from the body more than an addict and an alcoholic. I'm not trying to be like unique here. I'm just saying that the life and the trauma that is led through the life of an addict or an alcoholic, there is trauma. We're living in straight fight or flight or freeze years where using and drinking is the source that will keep me alive. Now, that isn't factual. That's a lie that brought us to our knees, right? So when you get into meditation, you begin to unravel all this stress that's accumulated over the years in the body and is stored. And what you're doing is you're making more room for the essence of you, which is God, by the way, or the kingdom of heaven, or whatever you would like to call it. But your change of heart, your psychic change, your spiritual experience, that's your responsibility. That's not even God's responsibility. Your responsibility is to create an environment within yourself that God can work. That's it. It's my business to change my life. God is not going to come down from the heavens and do it for me. This is why I love psychology. I love therapy. I love everything the world has to offer, because I think there is more power of choice that's needed. You should be able to start living certain ways and become proud of the man or the woman that you've become. But you know what? It's going to be painful. It's going to be fucking difficult. And that's got to be okay with you. That has to be okay with you. Because if you walk around in recovery demanding euphoria, you might as well go back out and drink and drug. Because life just don't work that way. Right? But if you become okay with not being okay, everything becomes okay. When you become okay with things not being okay, everything will become okay. The more you can let this world just become something that you're aware of and not something you're so attached and involved into, the more it'll let you become the highest version of yourself. Things are happening, events are happening. This world is taking place whether you want it to or not. You either get involved with the drama and attachment of that and get put down by the weight of it, or be transformed by stepping back and getting dialed in with some type of spiritual power. This we do by simple practices: prayer, meditation, inventory, writing to God. We have to have an ideal that's deep and meaningful. It can't be surface anymore. It can't just be living on the surface of life in pain. That's gone. That's in the wind, right? So, again, addiction, I'll just say pain, everything I've gone through in my life up until this point, I'm not special. I'm not any different than anyone. Everything in my life, all the bad shit, has turned me into the man I've always wanted to be. And I'm proud of the man I am today. And I never thought I'd be able to say that. And I say that with humility and love. I never thought I'd be able to say that. But I'm proud of the man that I am today. And I'm the man today that my younger self needed really bad. He needed me really, really bad. So the most painful experiences in my life have become the most holy, because I no longer resist them. When you resist that stuff, it just follows you around, man. Every human has a ton of blocks and bullshit within them that we need to take a look and open the heart and let it come up and out, because it's painful. So we think we're getting rid of it, but we're just stuffing it down. Right? That's a whole nother conversation. But anyways, 100 episodes, man. This is 100 fucking episodes. I can't believe it. 3 years running, baby. 100 episodes. It's a milestone. I can't think of a better milestone to do this with. Is, reconnecting 7 years later with my old therapist, who's now a professor, sharing this video with the beautiful people at college. I got my friend Andrew and Nora over here helping me. We're going on YouTube all year. So again, we just follow it. None of this was curated. It came to the doorstep and we just said, yes, okay. I'm scared, but okay. I'm scared to death. I don't want to have a fucking video production in my home right now. I'm scared. I don't want to do it. It's nerve-wracking. Okay. That's okay. So what? Keep going. Right? Discomfort is welcoming today, because on the other side of it is more joy. It's more peace and more love. So like, what could happen if you really tried? What if you went straight to where you stumble? Joseph Campbell has this line. He says, when you find yourself falling, dive. When you find yourself falling, dive. Stop trying to catch yourself, man. If you're falling, jump in. You're going down anyways, Something's calling you to go through something. But anyways, 100 episodes. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Just it's From the Grave Inc. on YouTube. Check it out. Let's see, YouTube every week. And then we got this. Thank you for everyone listening at Elkins College in West Virginia. I love y'all. I appreciate your support. If you subscribe to the podcast, it's on all media platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, iHeartRadio, all that. Maybe you hit a subscribe. Maybe you leave a review. Who knows? Maybe you will. Maybe you won't. But anyways, thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing your time with me. And I hope everyone's having a beautiful new year. Peace.